And we're live. Let's begin with the theme song. This is a new theme song. I picked it out. I thought I liked it quite a lot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Late Night Serotonin, our Monday show here where we talk about things that we care about, things that have happened throughout the week, and things that we want to bring more light to. Our discipline is mostly in TikTok, so we're going to get a chance to go into further depth. I have my guest, Astrofeminist, who I will give a moment to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Astrofeminist. My platform is primarily on TikTok. I make a lot of content discussing women's issues, the patriarchy, and pretty much just anything leftist. So if you're interested, go check it out.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. And I will, once this broadcast goes live, be linking them. Once this broadcast is finished, I'll link them below. You can also find them in the interview I have done on my channel, and their channel's linked below there too, as well as you can find them in the Discord that we are currently talking in, which is available in the description down below. With that, an introduction to me, for those who may be joining us for the first time, I am Lady Avalon, the host of Serotonin Studios. I am a transgender, lesbian, socialist, polyamorous, disabled atheist. And with that, let's jump straight into the topic, ending the theme song. So, as the title may have introduced you all, President Biden has decided to legalize all drugs, or at least, let me read what his words were. As I've said before, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. Today, I am taking steps to end our failed approach and allow me to lay them out. First, I am pardoning all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. There are thousands of people who were previously convicted of simple possessions who may be denied employment, housing, educational opportunities as a result. My pardon will remove this burden. Second, I am calling on governors to pardon simple state marijuana possession offenses. Just as no one should be in federal prison solely for possessing marijuana, no one should be in local jail or state prison for that reason either. Thirdly, we classify marijuana at the same level as heroin, more serious than fentanyl. This makes no sense. They are asking the Secretary and Attorney General to initiate the process of review of how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. I'd also like to note that federal and state regulations change. We will need to import limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales of marijuana. Sending people to jail for possession of marijuana has upended too many lives for conduct that is legal in many states. That's before you address the clear racial disparities around prosecution and conviction. Today, we begin to right these wrongs. So, pretty good. Pardoning all federal marijuana possession offenses. That is, I think, fantastic. A huge step forward. I talked about this in my regular show where I talk about news and politics every single day. This is great. It doesn't obviously fix everything all at once, but it is, I think, a massive step forward in the right direction. Thoughts on the panel?
Absolutely. I think this is just yet another, like you said, great step in the right direction. Biden's having a pretty good couple months, with this being just after forgiving student debt. I'm curious to see responses to this, particularly from the more libertarian-leaning side. They're typically more aligned to right-leaning beliefs, but this is something that they have discussed and talked about in their circles for quite a while now. So I'm interested to see if they're going to actually give credit where credit is due and give Biden that kudos that he deserves.
And this article is of no help. Never mind. Pretty good. Yeah, an all-around good thing. Now, to be clear, we all understand that this is, they probably waited on this a little bit until the midterms, It's no coincidence, to no one's surprise, that Biden starts doing all of the best and most popular things that he promised in the campaign trail right before the midterms, right when it would be the most politically expedient. However, he's doing good things, even if it is to a cynical level of benefit. He's still doing good things, and I will take that over like a Republican performatively doing bad things because they think it would be politically expedient for them.
A win's a win.
A win is a win.
So.
I'll take it. Simple as.
Yeah. But I do think it is important to recognize that that aspect towards the racial disparity that there is a disproportionate amount of people of color that are affected by these laws, or they were as the laws were before. So hopefully this is a step in that right direction to kind of, as you said, right those wrongs that unfairly affect those communities.
Yeah, Biden can't simply snap his fingers and legalize marijuana, but we're heading in the right direction insofar as with the powers he has as the executive office, he can exert an enormous amount of influence, calling on all governors to pardon those simple convictions. That's a huge step. That's a massive movement. Now, clearly, I'm not expecting Ron DeSantis or Greg Abbott to suddenly start pardoning marijuana offenses. Although, I will say that legalizing marijuana has been growing in popularity even amongst Republicans, to the point where many Republicans don't want to openly oppose it too much because that can hurt them politically, which is good news. We are changing the hearts and minds of the constituents, which then rather reluctantly forces even Republicans to, if not change their tune, at least pipe down a little bit.
Exactly. And I think this is going to kind of, and along with the student debt forgiveness, I think this is really going to kind of show that line, that distinction for which governors aren't going to pardon those offenses and which ones are going to. And it seems like a lot of these topics that are affecting so many people, I think it's a really good move for them to kind of target the Republican base almost. It's almost like the Democrats are on the offensive against Republicans with these really strong movements towards things that affect a lot of people.
Yeah, and with, things like marijuana or abortion, rather amusingly, we've seen a lot of, after Roe v. Wade fell and the national abortion ban being touted by Senator Lindsey Graham, we've seen a lot of Republicans actually quiet down about their previously hardline abortion stances and back off of them because suddenly they're on the unpopular end of the political spectrum by a lot, and that eats away at their base. And a lot of them who are in close races, who are holding it together by slim margins, stuff as popular as that can really hurt them. And so now they're having to really pick and choose their battles. And they're getting beat up really hard about it. The obvious fights that are being lost right now is the Herschel Walker campaign and the Dr. Oz campaigns. But those have less to do with like one of them or either of them supporting unpopular policies, and more just those two candidates are just so particularly horrendous that it might end up sinking their campaigns. Herschel Walker rather famously was anti-abortion even in the cases of rape or incest. Come to find out, he got an abortion for his mistress, one of the 5 women he had, or 4 women he had different kids with. And got lambasted by his son, Christian Walker, who is a conservative commentator. And Dr. Oz, that story where Dr. Oz performed scientific experiments on 300 puppies and they all died. That's never going to look good on any politician. No way you spin that. You can say, "Oh, it was for science." No, you killed 300 dogs. That's going to sink a campaign pretty hard, most of the time anyways.
Yeah, And I think something to worth noting about these all these things that are being all these topics is that they are happening during and very close to the midterms is that they are all topics that primarily affect the younger voting base. Marijuana, student loan debt, and abortion are all going to be things for people typically under 35. Obviously, people older can take part in those things, but they're really going for that Gen Z and younger millennial base. And I think that's really interesting to kind of take note and see like that's who they're targeting
Mm.
because I believe that Gen Z is coming out in droves to vote. Like they're registering to vote more than any other generation at like their age for their age group. So I think that that's a really smart move that they're making.
Oh yeah, we've seen politicians who've been on the ball and ahead of the game for a while, like Bernie Sanders, where even as far back as 2014 was saying, "Hey, the young people of this country are the future of this country, and they're going to be the major voting bloc here pretty soon." And the millennials and the Gen Zs combined dwarf all the previous generations in terms of numbers. All you got to do is get them passionate, get them involved, and get them activated. And Bernie did a lot to do that in his two presidential runs, to set up a lot of the infrastructure for that, getting people involved. And then the rest of the online became the online left, which we're a part of, both on YouTube and now on TikTok. Getting so many young people involved, it is becoming very clear that a lot of these races are going to be decided by the younger generation, and that's going to become more and more true every single election cycle as more and more young people become of age to vote and they get radicalized because, well, the Republicans seem to be in a competition of who can be the most reprehensibly evil at any given point. So they're doing a lot to radicalize young people against them. Stories of like Martha's Vineyard, where these performative acts of cruelty. A lot of Gen Z are characterized by their knowledge, their friendship, or even the fact that they are transgender or queer or gay in any way, or they know people who are trans or gay in any way or queer. And you see so many Republicans hating on that and rejecting that and going after with so many different hundreds of anti-trans bills, hundreds of anti-queer bills that have been passed or proposed over the past several years. The Republicans have engaged in a rather novel strategy of turn everyone but a small group of people against you. And I'd say they're engaging in that strategy fantastically. If their goal is to piss off as many people as possible, turn as many different groups against them as possible, they are succeeding, as it is mostly white, middle class, or older boomers who vote for Republicans. And while those tend to be reliable voting bases to pull from, there's a ticking clock on all of those voting bases. Not so much for every other demographic, be that Latinos, be that African Americans, be that queer people, be that gay trans people, or young people. The Republicans have ended up separating themselves so much from the rest of the country that they are a dying power. And they're trying to clutch on as much as they can. They're making laws to try and restrict voting rights as much as they can. They're trying to gerrymander as much as possible because even strongholds like Texas are in a tough race where Beto O'Rourke looks like he might actually unseat Greg Abbott, as gerrymandered as that state is, because the Republicans have just gone nuts. Being against everything all the time. Basically, if there is a good thing, you can find Republicans who oppose it. Even I talked about this on my show not too long ago. Republicans in Florida were voting against disaster relief for their own state because they didn't want Biden to get a win. Like, that's not going to make you look popular to your constituents when you're abandoning them for a political scheme.
Yeah, it's like they have this, it's like their motivation is to make people's lives as hard as possible, as difficult as possible, because that's somehow respectable. Like, don't take any handouts. You can't be on welfare. You can't do anything that makes your life a little easier. And I'll never understand that. I mean, it just, yeah. And they're really kind of ostracizing their base, especially like that was awful in Florida that they voted against disaster relief for their own constituents. And if that doesn't put the light bulb on for their constituents, I don't really know what would at that point.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you had something you wanted to bring to the table, something you wanted to talk about.
Yes, I wanted to talk about the House Republicans vote against bill to address mental health in schools. We have heard ad nauseum from the NRA saying that mass shootings, especially mass shootings involving schools, is a mental health problem. And for these NRA backed Republicans to almost unanimously vote against mental health access within schools really kind of brings that whole argument back into question. So is it really mental health? And if it's mental health, why is there no emphasis placed on creating access for people to get the help that they need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you said, they're constant. They've been saying for years that it's a mental health issue, not a gun issue. But as is, I think, characteristic of a lot of Republican positions, when it's time to put up and shut up, they shut up and they'll walk away. When it comes to actual genuine improvements, we see this with a lot of the grifter types. They'll say that they're against big business and that they're against corporations. And what they mean when they say that is that they're against corporations showing support of gay people or trans people. Every Pride Month, they'll come out and they'll say, "Oh, we're against corporations. How dare they show that gay people are a good thing." But to them, it's just performative. They're just saying words. When it comes time to actually knuckle down and be like, okay, so you're against corporations, so you'd be in favor of corporate taxes, right? To knock them down a peg so that they could stop exploiting their workers so much. And turns out, no, actually, Republicans are massively in bed with all of the biggest businesses. They get paid out by the pharma industry, by the oil industry. Their pockets are lined with bags of money, and they are unwilling to give that up. Instead, they'll just posture at populism, because they know that it's popular to be against corporations, because corporations do not make many friends amongst the working class. But when it comes time to actually pass legislation, they're against it. When it comes time to vote on disaster relief for their own states, they'll vote against it because they want the political points of no, we can't let Biden have a win because that would make him look good. So we're going to sacrifice our own people just for some political points. And that is, I think, characteristic of the entire Republican political apparatus. They will pretend to talk a good game, but when it comes time to actually do something, to actually put those words into law, suddenly they are found lacking.
Yeah, and I think the worst part is that, I guess it's it's reprehensible but understandable that the politicians have this grifter mindset where they say one thing and mean another, because at least they're actually getting paid at the end of the day. They're pocketing that money. The saddest part of it is that the followers of these politicians, these people that put these people into office that will get not a penny of that money, are also advocating for the same things, advocating for these major corporations to have things like tax breaks, for them to not have any, not no controls, but to have as little controls as possible, because capitalism. And I think it just really shows the lack of importance we place on American education, and how these people are just led to believe that this is how it should be, and they don't get a cent of that money. They're just advocating against their best interest, and they've been conditioned to believe that that's what they're supposed to do. So I think
Yeah,
that's worth noting.
Actually, I think a really good example of that is the Herschel Walker campaign, you know? He's
Yep.
hitting all the right performative points. You know, he's against rape in all cases, even in the case of rape and incest. Wait, I said the wrong. He's against abortion in all cases of rape and incest.
I know what you meant.
um, for the viewers who may be confused, I am also against rapes in all cases. Thank you. He's against abortion in all cases, even in rape and incest. But he'll turn around, and when it's convenient for him, he'll pay for an abortion for his mistress. He'll sleep around with 4 different women. And while I don't find anything morally wrong with having an abortion or sleeping with different women, the problem is he's a hypocrite. He's lying. It's civil rights for thee, not for me. Or sorry, civil rights for me, not for thee. What's good for the goose should be good for the gander, but it's not. Republicans will pass anti-abortion legislation fully knowing that when they need an abortion or when their mistress needs an abortion, they have the money and the resources to get one safely. But screw everyone else below them. Screw everyone else below them. And after this Herschel Walker thing has come out, and Christian Walker, his son, went on a rant against him publicly.
I saw that.
We actually see some Republicans coming out and being remarkably honest for a turn, in which they say they don't care. Specifically, I remember one commentator saying this, that they don't care if Herschel Walker aborted baby eagles. They don't care. They want control of the Senate, and that's all they care about.
Yes, that was that lady,
Yeah,
correct?
that lady.
Yeah,
I
I
wish
saw
I had it.
that.
I didn't prepare it today,
I,
but
I saw it on TikTok. I forgot her name.
yeah, they're being
But
remarkably honest. They don't care about politics. They don't care about ethics or principles or morals. They don't have those. Those are a poor man's game. They don't care. They care about power. That's what they're concerned about. Abortions never matter to them. It's only a tool. It's only a tool to get what they want, to get power. So it demonstrates they're willing to elect or at least support Herschel Walker, who is shown to be a massive hypocrite, abusive to his family. According to Christian Walker, threatened to kill them on at least one, if not more, occasions, and was moved 6 times in 6 months to outrun his violence. Republicans are no strangers to electing terrible people. Donald Trump is constantly touted as this, great and moral person, but he cheated on his wife multiple times. He's a serial cheater, best friends with Epstein, and constantly, is trying to hide his taxes because he's gone from bankruptcy to bankruptcy by lying on his taxes, and he's been taken to court on that. He lies so often, so flagrantly, so consistently, so obviously, that it's almost cartoonish. And they don't care. That's not really important to them. Republicans will still support compulsive, narcissistic liars all the way through because it gets them power. And that's what they're actually for. And in that sense, they're actually consistent in their beliefs. They don't care about abortion. They don't care about Christianity or the God. They don't care about morality. None of that. That's all unimportant. Those are T-shirts that you wear. All right, they'll put them on, take them off at the end of the day. Those are just the suit they wear to work. That's abortion. What is that but a necktie? That you match with your coat. The coat of Christianity, necktie of abortion. Those are just articles of clothing, articles of fashion that they can adopt and drop at the drop of a hat. What they actually care about, what they're actually driving for, is power. That's what they want, power and control. And it's just so blatant, so obvious that that's what they're after.
Exactly. and after all of this, I'm curious to see where Christian Walker is going to be positioned. He is a very prominent right leaning content creator on TikTok. I know that he's been banned several times, but he's always come back. And I'm really curious to see where, is he going to continue the right wing rhetoric, or is he going to have his redemption arc in 2023?
Maybe a redemption arc, but given that he is a right-wing content creator, there is an economic incentive for him to stick to being conservative. And in fact, the way he's framed his criticisms of his father has been like, I've talked about fatherless behavior so much because it affected me. Boom. And Christians and conservatives, you should be mad about that. Of course, I always hope that people will come around and improve. And maybe the absolute mauling he is getting from conservatives right now, because conservative hierarchies, all right, the people higher up on the rungs, prominent Republicans, they're still backing Walker all the way. Herschel gets their full support because they want control of the Senate. That's all they care about. So screw Christian Walker, who at least right now seems to be operating under the belief that Republicans will act in good faith of their espoused morals. And you hope that the shock, the sort of system shock of seeing them so blatantly ignore their touted morals in favor of just a sliver of power will hopefully start him down the path to get a redemption arc, as you put it, to change his mind and be like, okay, maybe I should reassess all of my things, all of my beliefs, because the people who instructed me in those beliefs to begin with don't actually believe in them. They don't care. They don't believe in it. It's unimportant to them.
Yeah. And I do wonder about what his experience is like being a queer man of color in that field. There's a fly. Or in that sort of community, and if they're going to try to use that against him, given all of this information that he's brought to light that isn't, and as you said, they don't care about any of these actual morals that they claim to have. It's all about having power. So the minute that somebody is no longer useful to them, and he's been used. I've seen him be referenced as like, well, Christian Walker, he's a man of color who's also gay, and he's a Republican. So I'm really curious to see how that works out for him on being on that side, because I've seen how they turn on a dime, especially now that he's gone against his own father. But as you said, they don't care about the morals, they just want the power. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to bring a glass of water in here. Before we move on to our next story, folks, I'd encourage you all to like the stream and subscribe for more if you enjoy the content. We do these sort of shows every Monday, and usually we'll have more creators. People are busy this week, but I like to have a host, a whole panel to go over various topics as we cycle through them. Today's episode will be a little bit shorter, but we seem to be moving along at a handsome clip so far. Comment down below your thoughts on how you think the Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz campaigns will go. Do you think that Herschel Walker's campaign and his infidelity and his abortion past will come back to bite him and he'll lose his campaign? And do you think Dr. Oz, which we've only partially touched on, do you think the allegations that he has killed at least 300 puppies, do you think that will sink his campaign, among other things he doesn't seem to be doing too well? We know, for instance, that Herschel Walker is currently trying to avoid or downplay the debates with the Democrat Raphael Warnock by saying, and I quote, "He's stupid." That's their words. They say that Herschel Walker is kind of stupid. Therefore, he's not going to perform well against the Democrat, Raphael Warnock, which is a strategy for an elected official to take. With that, I'll give my guests an opportunity to shout themselves out, and then we'll jump into our next topic.
Wait, you just to do like a closing outro?
Go ahead and shout yourself out, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Oh, just TikTok outro.
Yeah, and any closing thoughts you have.
Oh, just my content on TikTok is astrofeminist, a lot of anti-patriarchal stuff, and discussing how it actually affects everyone today. And so just go check it out if you're interested in it, and we can continue this little party we got going on.
All right. From the Daily Mail online, LAPD officer 32 was beaten to death by colleagues in simulated mob attack training exercise. The lawyer for that LAPD officer that was killed during the training exercise by other cops says that the dead cop was investigating a gang rape by 4 cops, one of whom was there when he was beaten to death. This is a disturbing story, but it gets worse. LAPD declined a request for comment from the Post, but in a May 31st news release, the department said that the officer Tipping, fell on the floor while grappling with another officer during a training scenario, which caused catastrophic spinal cord injury. After the injury, the officers started CPR and hailed paramedics, who took Tipping to a hospital. Chief Michael Moore described Tipping as a bright and uplifting young man with a full life in front of him. The department was fully investigating what he called the accident to see whether the top brass can make changes to training to ensure such a tragedy is avoided in the future. Now, remember, the LAPD is claiming that the officer who was investigating a gang rape of 4 other officers fell during a training exercise. Let me read you his injuries. In an interview, Gage said that Tipping suffered a punctured lung, broken ribs, damaged liver, severe head wounds, and his spinal cord was broken in 3 separate places, which caused permanent paralysis and led to surgeons fuse 7 vertebrae together to stabilize his spine, the lawyer added. Now, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a police officer. But a punctured lung, broken ribs, damaged liver, and spinal cord broken in 3 separate places? I don't think that happens while falling to the ground mid-grapple.
Absolutely not.
Especially when one of the officers that he was investigating for the gang rape was present at time of his death. It seems pretty clear that this is a naked, unabashed murder of a fellow officer who was going to investigate and testify against his fellow officers for the crimes that they had committed, and they decided, no, instead we'll just kill him.
I don't really want to feel bad for a cop, but it puts us in a real kind of odd juxtaposition here, where we have a cop doing what cops do on one hand, and one of their own being brutally beaten and murdered, or allegedly falling during a grappling exercise. Excuse me. It's. I can't really say I'm surprised, but I am almost at the same time. So.
Yeah, definitely infuriating, but it goes to show. And I think this is important for even liberals to understand. The good cops, this is what happens to them. There's many stories like it that come up every so often. A good cop goes to investigate or testify against their fellow officers, and they get disciplined, they get beaten, they get accidentally died, and or they get kicked out of the department because shit happens. And oh man, what was that? I just read the story on Twitter. I don't have it. There was an officer who was set to testify against other officers in New York, and what they did is they instead claimed that he was having a psychiatric episode and interred him in a mental hospital for 5 days, and then made a commemorative little plate of a rat wrapped in a straitjacket.
I mean, if this isn't proof that cops are just one big gang, it's obvious. It's very, the signs are there, and it is a gang, and there is no good cop that prevails. It is always the bad cops are gonna root them out. So it's just it's something really hard to deal with and come to terms with, knowing that this group of people can pretty much kill you if they see fit under any circumstances.
Yeah, and it's difficult thinking about it politically. I'm a reformist at heart. Eventually I want to go into politics, and I want to affect change and be a part of the system that makes people's lives better. But when you see stories like this, and when you see so many stories like this, where it's not unique, it's not an outlier, you see a lot of stories like this, and the people in charge just get away with it. They just sort of shrug they didn't feel like they needed to come up with a plausible excuse. They're just like, oh yeah, spine shattered in 3 places, broken ribs, punctured lung. He fell. That's it. He fell. He just tripped over. His shoelaces were untied. Shoulda kept.
There's a banana peel.
Yeah, exactly. There was a banana peel. What was up with that? They don't feel the need, like they need to come up with some elaborate lie. They didn't need to hide this. They don't care. It doesn't matter. No consequences will touch them. So often, not only do officers not get charged all that often, but they don't get convicted. They get convicted even less.
Exactly.
They're so used to the immunity that they enjoy.
And the fact that they can do it so callously, like this is involving dead people. People are dying, people's lives are ending, people are losing family members, and it's just callous. There's no, yeah, he fell. Like, I don't know. It just seems bizarre to me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, folks, I would ask you, comment down below what stories of police officers, the good ones who tried to do something and got forced out of it. Leave your favorite of those stories down below. And I say favorite very loosely. Which ones do you think are the most important, and ones you wish were talked about more? It's an ongoing tragedy. And how do we deal with the cops? How do we deal with these legalized gangs who can do whatever they want with basic impunity? How do we deal with them? What legislation do we propose? Biden seems to think that the answer is giving them more money than any other president has in history. Not sure if I agree with that approach, personally. But then, on the other side, you have people saying, abolish the police and disband them entirely. I think we do not have the infrastructure in place to abolish the police as just a practical measure. Because usually, when people say defund the police, what they actually mean is take the massive amount of funds that police get and instead fund that towards like other social services, mental health and social workers going door to door and dealing with that. Because, cops only deal with about like 4% of their job is violent crime. About 4%. Sometimes that'll rise. Maybe let's be super generous to the cops and let's raise it all the way to 10%. 10% of their job is violent crimes. The rest of that, drunk calls, domestic abuser situations, suicides, suicide attempts, house calls, things like that, or traffic stops. Not really stuff that requires you to be wearing body armor and a gun. Oh man, I wish I had that post where someone had made a meme of like cops going like, look at this social worker trying to calm down the naked 6'2" guy waving around a knife and try and disarm him quietly. And a social worker commented under that, talking about how, sometimes you have to deal with crazy people who are naked, covered in like grease and oil, and are running around with a frying pan, completely, having an episode. But what the social worker hit on is that everyone's still alive at the end of the day. That social workers, sometimes have to deal with extraordinary circumstances, but they do that and no one dies.
They're not even armed.
Yeah, and they're not even armed. It's a long running thing. How can officers, officers are just like, I felt my life was in danger. He was a black man and he had a comb, and then they shoot him 75 times in the chest. They're always asking, well, we had no other choice. We felt our life was threatened. And then people are like, well, nurses and teachers and social workers often have to deal with very dangerous people, very belligerent people who threaten their lives, and they deal with those with grace. Hell, the average McDonald's employee deals with more abuse than the cops do, and has a lot less power to protect themselves with it. And they seem to manage just fine without resorting to lethal force. Although, having worked in grocery stores and the service industry before, I can say, if the McDonald's employee decided to use lethal force, I would support them unequivocally. I'm joking.
Absolutely. So.
Okay. Any final comments and closing thoughts on that issue?
Personally, no. I think I agree with you on the whole the idea of reform, but I do think that it needs to be largely overhauled and just completely re-looked at from the ground up. I think that, I don't know if reforming the current law enforcement systems that we have would work, just because it runs so deeply, like at all levels. But I do think that there does need to be some kind of law enforcement protection, but not what we have right now.
Yeah. Let me go ahead and share my screen. That way I can show you this next thing that we'll be talking about, which is Lizzo. A clip of Lizzo playing a 200-year-old flute in the Library of Congress. A beautiful performance from a well-trained musician. The outrage from certain people is just a symptom of their ideology. So let's take a listen. That is really quiet. Can I make that any louder? I wonder. There we go. There we go. Much louder. Lizzo is, of course, classically trained with the flute.
I want to see one of these people that got upset that she played this flute. I want to see one of these people referencing this flute before she played it. Just one. None of them knew it existed before she was playing it. It's let's call it what it is. Let's call a duck a duck. This is blatant racism and ableism, fat phobia, everything, all in one.
Yeah, a fat black woman is playing an old slaver's flute, and now they're angry about it. And it's doubly so. It's more like naked and obvious because Lizzo, to my knowledge, is squeaky clean. Like, does not have any like other attached controversies surrounding her. She's just a very good musician who makes like happy music.
A very talented musician.
Yeah. And so was invited by the Library of Congress to play the flute to demonstrate to young people, here's a part of our history, and we get to pass it on from musician to musician to the next group of people, and maybe that'll inspire you to get into music, to inspire you to express yourself with the flute or with any other instrument, with your voice. And I think it's great. And then, of course, Go ahead.
Oh, I just love the fact that it's something that's so old and it's something that came from, a dark time in our history, and now it's being kind of reintroduced, and it kind of has now just a new part of its own history that's a lot more acceptable and a lot more just inclusive. So I think I like that it's being brought into the newer generation, kind of like you said, in this way.
And, we have fantastic tweets from like Ben Shapiro. Here's what Ben Shapiro had to say when a black woman plays an old flute and makes white dudes mad. This Lizzo flute controversy is the perfect example of what I have termed face tattoo phenomenon. The phenomenon whereby someone does something deliberately controversial in an attempt to draw attention and then acts offended when you notice. Hey, Ben, what's so controversial about the black fat woman playing a flute? Say it out loud, bud. Say it with your chest.
Inquiring minds want to know.
What is the problem with this classically trained flutist? Is that what they're called? Flutist? Fluties? Fluti? I don't know. Flautists? I don't know. What is this? What is the problem with this classically trained musician using a historical piece of art? I see no problem with this. Some people say,
piece of history.
Yeah. Some people are like, oh, well, it's never been used before. It's been used now to make good music. What is the point of having an instrument if it is never to be played? That seems dumb. That's my opinion. The idea that, oh, well, it's never been played before, that's what makes it valuable. No, now it's valuable because it's been played by Lizzo. Oh, it was made by James Madison. It was played by Lizzo. It just got more valuable. Fuck you.
They did not know it existed before this whole thing went down. They could not have cared less. It's because it was a black woman, a very talented black woman, a talent that they could probably never achieve themselves, is playing it. And
yeah, I'm going to be honest. I didn't know about this flute before it was played.
Neither did I.
But I care about art, and I care about its continuance. I care about it being taught to young people, and I think it's cool that a piece of American history from a slaver is now being handed to a black woman to play in the halls of Congress. I think that's cool.
And it's famous for that reason now. Nobody knew about it. I didn't know about it either. But it's now famous because Lizzo played it. And I think that's what they really kind of hate, that it was something that was part of American history, part of white supremacy, part of this. It had its place, But now that it's, a black woman that has played it fantastically and has now attached a very crucial moment to its history, can't take that away. And it's just, I love seeing them lose their minds over it.
Absolutely. And I like the story because it's a bit of like a refresher, a breath of fresh air. Obviously, old racist white men being angry is not a good thing, but it's fun to laugh at. But after the last couple of stories that we've gone over, it certainly lifts the spirits quite considerably, which will continue to rise as we get into the sillier portion of today's episode with our last story of the night. Ooh, wow, my voice is way... I'm sorry, audience. I didn't realize that my voice gain had been turned up so much. Let me fix that. There we go. We're just going to go over a fun little news story, a little bit of drama that happened, and we get to laugh and react to it. And I'm going to read this whole thing. Feel free to, my guest, Astro, feel free to jump in and comment at any point, and we'll just read this whole thing together, and it'll be an experience. So... Breaking news. The Daily Wire announces plan to make a movie about the life of Malcolm X, starring Michael Knowles as the civil rights leader. Let me go ahead and share my screen for you so you can see what Michael Knowles looks like.
I heard about this, and I'm so glad you are doing this, because I didn't go into it. Oof.
Yeah. So, the left keeps casting black actors as white characters, Matt Walsh told reporters. Now we're fighting back. Is my OBS broken?
I don't think so. I'm watching it from YouTube right now.
Okay, cool. It froze on my end.
Frozen a little bit.
So
Yeah,
now
it's
we're
frozen a little
fighting
bit.
back. That's delightful. Let's read some of the comments. I like from Brian. I like that y'all can't tell the difference between a fictional character and a historical person. It lines up well with the rest of your positions. Connor comes in to say, if you're referring to the live-action Little Mermaid, that's not a fictional character. It's an established character being race-swapped. It's a live version of the animated movie, not a new retelling of the fairy tale or some random fictional mermaid. And we can.
They had a Jamaican crab that sang tales under the sea.
Brian jumps in again. So to be clear, it's a fictional character, Connor. No, the animated movie exists. Hate to break it to you, mermaids being fictional has nothing to do with this conversation. Another commenter says, never thought I'd have to tell a grown adult that Ariel is not a real historical figure. You're a whiny soy snowflake with a victim mindset. Connor, once again, jumps in and says, Disney's 1989 Ariel exists. I don't know how you can be more historical than that. Fictional equals not real. Made up. Did we all coincidentally imagine the same Disney movie? Or does the movie really exist? Brian, in tears at this point. Does the movie really exist? Yes. Is Donkey from Shrek now a real being too? Connor. Yes, Donkey is real. An established character as well. Brian, on his last leg. Do you know that established character is still a fictional character? Connor.
Established character doesn't mean historical figure.
Connor, with an absolute killer line to send us off with. She's as established in history as Malcolm X is. 10 out of 10. No notes. None whatsoever. This is fantastic.
That man was educated in America.
Yeah. Bad faith
without
arguing,
a doubt.
Yeah, bad faith arguing is sometimes indistinguishable from stupidity. Yeah, that's what happens when you defund public education for 40 years. Yeah, that'll do it.
Wow, that's rough.
It's delightful. I thought we would enjoy this. It's so stupid. But you also
It's
know with 100% conviction that this man believes every word he said. Every word.
oh,
He
absolutely.
sees no contradiction. Connor is a wall, all right? Nothing gets past him. Nothing gets past Connor. She's as established in history as Malcolm X is. Oh,
Oh.
it's so good. Oh, it's so
And
good.
you know he went to bed that night thinking he won, thinking he did something. He was like
Absolutely. He's like, ah, yeah.
triggered
Try,
the libs.
try me again, keyboard warrior. Oh, it's delightful.
Snowflake.
All right. So,
Oh
any
my
thoughts
god.
on Michael Knowles playing Malcolm X in this biopic?
I mean, I'm shocked that they did this. The Daily Wire, I know are is garbage, but even I am shocked that they had the audacity to do this. Do they just not see the difference? Do they really think, like, is it an actual thing, or is this kind of just like an own the libs, like trying to get a reaction, or is there actually a movie in the works?
I have no idea. I know like Ben Shapiro wrote that god awful like school shooter movie that everyone lampooned. Yeah. Oh, you didn't know he did that? Yeah. No,
No.
he wrote a movie about a school shooting and like a kid with a gun fended off the school shooter, with like the good guy with a gun narrative. That was literally that's the plot of the movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And
No.
then there's apparently some movie with Gina Carano. You know the heavily anti-Semitic actress from Star Wars who was warned repeatedly by the company that like, hey, we're a child-friendly company. Stop posting anti-Semitic memes on Twitter. Stop. And she kept doing it, and then she got fired.
She got
Um,
fired and then she tried to compare herself to Holocaust victims.
because of course the conservative mindset is that of the perpetual victim. You know, they're always looking to be oppressed. You know, you see this a lot with Christians, with like, you know, their constant mentality of like, oh, we're oppressed, we're the salt of the earth. You know, everyone's against us, when they're literally the most powerful religion of the most powerful country on the planet. They're not victims, none of them are.
No, it's yeah. I I don't understand. It's just but
You know,
yeah, I saw that she was, she had gotten fired, and people truly believe, like, I'm telling, or I've gotten in like arguments about this, and it's like she continued to do something she was asked not to do multiple times, and then just to compare her being fired for her own actions to a Holocaust victim is, it like, so
mhm.
tasteless in my opinion. Ugh.
You know, my thoughts on this, on Michael Knowles playing Malcolm X. Do it, pussy. Do it. See what happens.
Yeah,
I want to see what you can do.
yeah.
You know, go whole hog. You know,
Well, if you think about it, if this
have
is
some
like,
rope. I'm gonna put it in a little loop here. All right, you just hold on to this. You know, I'm
if
just gonna
they're
hold
not
the other end
actually
tightly.
making,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
if they're not actually making that movie, they know, like, and they made it as like a trigger post, that they know why it's bad. They know why what they're doing is inflammatory. They know. If they're actually making a movie, then they're just stupid. But
Mm-hmm.
if they're not, and that post or was just to like get a reaction, then they know exactly what they're doing. Like, they know they're white supremacists,
Mm-hmm.
but they just want the reaction.
Oh,
So,
I fully hope they're making the movie because movies are expensive as fuck to make. And you know it's gonna flop. You know it's gonna flop. This isn't like
yeah,
wow, what's his name? Michael McDonald or something like that.
yeah.
The rap artist who's like conservative. Um, this isn't like where you can just listen to one 3 minute song. You know, if they have to sit through a 90 minute or 2.5 hour long movie of, you know, their twisted perception of Malcolm X, like that's a history biopic, and B, done deliberately wrong in every conceivable fashion. it's not going to do well. They're going to tank. They're going to lose. But they know this, and they don't care. They're not bothered. I just hope it costs them a shit ton of money. If nothing else, that would teach them more than anything else. Because money talks, especially to Republicans.
It reminds me of that video, the pro-life video that they made, like with the ultrasound and the baby like moving away and everything. And even though that's completely false, that doesn't actually happen. But they tried to like pull at everybody's heartstrings, and that was around the time where I was kind of like, this is kind of bullshit. So, yeah.
All right. With that, folks, that is the end of our stories, the end of the Monday show. I'm going to give my guest a chance to shout themselves out.
Once again, I think I did the wrong thing earlier, but I'm going to do it one more time. Astro Feminist, make a lot of anti-patriarchal content on TikTok. I talk about all kinds of other things, anything pretty much leftist related. So yeah, if you want to check me out there, go do that.
Wonderful. And as you folks can see at the bottom of the screen here, support at patreon.com, Serotonin Studios, so we can do more amazing things with this show. Bring on more guests, hire editors, as we currently go without editors, and a bunch of other things. I'm always dreaming up new ideas to improve this show. With that, I'm Lady Avalon, the host of Serotonin Studios. Like the stream if you enjoyed it. Support us on Patreon. Join the Discord if you'd like to interact with any of my guests, including Astrofeminist or any of the others I've interviewed, like Redneck Rising Podcast or Your Socialist Dad, PK Dakota, and more. We're in there all the time. We love hanging out with people. I make videos on news and politics every single day. And with that, y'all have a good evening.